Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the session on domain analytics. Today, we'll be discussing about neural networks and its code, and we'll also be looking into text mining concepts. So, share my screen, then we can move on with the session. This is the last concept of the wildlife analytics. Okay, give me a minute. So today we'll be discussing about neural networks and how neural networks exactly work for wildlife analytics. So the agenda for today with respect to neural networks would be neural networks, neural network primer, perceptron and multi-layered perceptron algorithm. We'll be looking into perceptron and multi-layered perceptron algorithm and how that works, activation function, error surface, and gradient descent algorithm. So first is neural networks in wildlife. What exactly is a neural network? In these before sessions, we've discussed that they use drones to identify, they use sensors to identify the sound, jungle sounds, and drones to identify animals on land and in ocean, etc., etc. But how are drones able to identify all of those things? Is a main question here. So, with this training method, that is neural networks, the pixel of an image is fed as input into the neural network. Okay. This first layer is the input layer where the pixels of images is fed into this input layer, and this input layer sends the information into the hidden layers. Yes, this hidden layers does all the processing, identification, etc., etc., and gives out the solution to the output layer. After giving out the solution in the output layer, it identifies whether this pixel or an image belongs to a particular category. So this is a picture of a bird, the pixel image of a bird, and after going through input layer, hidden layers, and then output layer, it has identified that it is a bird. So that is how neural network in wildlife analytics works. Before even sending the drones and sensors to identify animals and get their information, researchers or scientists first train their models with the help of images and then see that the results they are getting are accurate. So next, how can we mimic the human brain? How does neural network work exactly like our brain? As we know, we have in our body, we have something called as neuron. Yes. So what does neuron do? It takes input signal, it processes the signal, and then it gives out the signal transduction or the signal output. So in these processes we have dendrites attached to the cell body, and we also have a nucleus, axon, and the axon terminals. So here the dendrites take in the information, and then the signal is processed and you get the signal transduction, signal output. So that is how the neuron in the human body works. So we first, for the dendrites, the input is given into the dendrites and synapses. These are all the data points or the objects that it takes into consideration, or the input signals, example, chair, bird, anything it might be. And then this is a post-synaptic signal of the cell body, this cell body, and output signal. This is the output signal, that is an axon. So that is how the images are, what we see, what we hear, what we touch. We get an idea of what it is. Suppose whenever we see what is in front of us, we immediately identify it as to what it is. So this is how our brain learns, identifies, and remembers the signals. Here in the input layer, if we given x1, x2, and x3 objects, and then it goes into the hidden layers, it reads, it identifies. If it doesn't identify, it learns, and then it gives out the output. Output as y1, y2, and y3, and it identifies exactly what that is. So this is how artificial neural network works in a human brain and also in an algorithm. So neural network primer. So neural network is a machine learning model inspired by the networks of biological neurons found in our brain. So we have three types of deep neural networks. First one is artificial neural network, multi-layered perceptron, convolution neural network, and recurrent neural network. The human brain is made up of 85 billion neurons. So resulting in a network capable of representing a tremendous amount of knowledge. But for others, a cat has roughly a billion neurons, mouse 75 million neurons, and a cockroach has only about 1 million neurons. So in contrast, many ANNs contain far fewer neurons, typically only several hundred. So we are in no danger of creating an artificial brain anytime in the near future. So here the perceptron algorithm, how does it work? Perceptron algorithm is a two-class, meaning binary classification machine learning algorithm. So the building blocks of neural networks are neurons, weights, and activation functions. It has a single node or neuron that takes a row of data as inputs and predicts a class label. Neurons have weighted inputs, threshold values, activation functions, and an output. So here, the perceptron algorithm is a two-class classification machine learning algorithm. The building blocks of neural networks are mostly neurons, weights, and activation function. So it has only single node, or it can also be called as a neuron. That takes a row of data as inputs. A single node takes a row of data as inputs and predicts a class label. It takes a row of data and gives out a label to that data. So neurons have weighted inputs, threshold values, activation function, and an output. So how is this achieved? This is achieved by calculating the weighted sum of inputs and a bias that is set to 1. So here the weighted sum of input of a model is nothing but a activation. So here we saw activation function. So what exactly is an activation is? This is achieved by when you calculate the weighted sum of inputs and a bias which is set to 1, the weighted sum of the input of the model is called the activation. So we have a simple formula for activation, that is weights into input plus bias. Weights into inputs plus bias. So here, if the activation is above 0.0, that is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and so on, 0.n, the model will output 1. Otherwise, it will output 0.0. So if activation is above 0.0, then it will output as 1. Otherwise, it will output as 0.0 itself. So we have here how we have a hypothesis testing for H1 and H0. Here we have P1. If activation is greater than 0.0, if we get the activation greater than 0.0, we tell it is a predict 1. And if the activation is less than or equal to 0.0, then we call it as predict 0. And as the inputs are multiplied by model coefficients, as in case of linear regression and logistic regression, normalization or standardization of data prior to using this model will be most successful approach. So this is one of the points to remember, where as the inputs are multiplied by model coefficients. In case of linear regression, they're telling as or like linear regression, if the inputs are multiplied by model coefficients, and logistic regressions, the same as logistic regression, normalization and standardization of data. Prior to using this model, that is perceptron algorithm, will give you the most success, will be the most successful approach. So first, we have to randomly initialize weight, that is W0 vector. We have to repeat until error is less than a threshold or max iteration M. So for each training example, Xi, Ti, we have to predict output Yi using current weights, network weights, that is Wn. So update weights vector as this following. So Wn plus 1 by network weights plus learning rate into training minus error into Xi. So we have a graph here with 4 points linearly separable. If you draw a straight line, it is separate. All the 4 points are scattered. So for initial weights to calculate, N, that is learning rate, is taken as 1 by 3 and weight is taken as 0,1. So after we do the calculation, we got W1 as 1,3 and 5,6. And then with these outputs, we calculate the second points. We mark these points and then we move on to the second point. So W1, with the help of the outputs that we got, we identify the next point. So with the help of W1 and error rate, learning rate, we get W2. So which we again plot. So this is the second correction we made. This is the first correction and this is the second correction. So corrections of weights turned out to be a rotation of the separating hyperplane. As you can see, this is slanted. First, we have a graph where we had a single line, and then we have a slanted line, and then we have a little more slanted line. So this is the correction of weights that is happening, and it's turned out to be a rotation of the separating hyperplane. Here we have the explanation of how a neuron works. So this was proposed by McCulloch and Pitts MP neuron in 1943. So what did McCulloch and Pitts proposed is, here f of f, which is an integration function, and a, which is an activation function. So integration function gives the aggregating input signals with input vector as x. An activation function gives a threshold logic and gives out the output y. When you input vector into the integration function with x1, x2, and so on, xm, it goes into the corrections of w1, w2, and wm, and it gives out the output y. So this is how a neuron is explained. That was proposed by Macula and Pitts. This is called as an MP neuron. And next we have multi-layer perceptron. Multi-layer perceptron, which is a supplement of feed-forward neural network. It consists of three types of layers. First is the input layer, output layer, and then a hidden layer. So the input layer receives the input signals to be processed. The required task, such as prediction and classification, is performed by the output layer. So number of hidden layers that are placed in between the input and output layers are the true computational engines of the ML. Hidden layers that are placed in between. We can't tell how many hidden layers are there, but whatever hidden layers are there in between the input and the output layer, those are called the computational engines of multi-layer perceptron. Here you can see we have 1, 2, and 3, and 4 inputs, which is going into the input layer, input T, 4, and then this input layer is given as P1, where 4 data points which are inputted into the input layer are going into the hidden layer with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is hidden layer is given as Q1. Why? Because that's the first hidden layer. And this 5 hidden layer part is then moved forward to 7 hidden layered part. So P2, 5, 7. From 5, it's moved on to 7. What is happening here? It is further splitting to identify better or to get better features and to get accurate results. Okay. From 4, suppose say we are giving 2 animals and 2 non-living objects. That is a chalkboard and a cardboard. So it will divide these among itself to recognize its features and work to give out the better outputs. So again, from this 7 Q2, it reduces the data to 3. 7, 3. And the output would be 3 types. As we saw, if a bird pixel of image bird is sent, we might get the output of dog, cat, bird. So if the model is able to identify the pixel with the image bird as an output as bird, then the model is working well. So here the number of hidden layers in between input and the output layer. These both are the two very important computational engines of the MLP, where they identify, learn, and give out the results. So now activation function. Activation function decides whether a neuron should be activated or not by calculating weighted sum and further adding bias with it. So the purpose of this activation function is to introduce non-linearity into the output of a neuron. So here we have identity function, that is AF is equal to A. And then this is the MP neuron. Okay. This is the MP neuron. And this is the step function where A of F is equal to 1, 0. F is greater than or equal to 0 and 0 otherwise. And this is a ramp function where A of F is equal to 1. You get 1 when F is greater than 1. You get F when 0 is less than or equal to F and F is less than or equal to 1. And you get 0 if F is less than 0. So, and then you have something called a sigmoid function where A of F is equal to 1 by 1 plus E minus lambda F. So these are all the different activation functions. So what does this activation function do exactly? It decides whether a neuron should be activated or not by calculating weighted sum and further adding bias to it. We already saw if it does, bias would be 1. So the purpose of the activation function is to introduce non-linearity into the output of a neuron. So we also have sigmoid, tanh, ReLU, ELU, max out, leaky ReLU, etc. And then we have something called as error surface. A central theme in neural network research is to find the right network for a problem. Network here meaning architecture and learning algorithm. So cost as a function of weights, which is taken as the graph shown here. So this is about the error function. And then we have gradient descent algorithm. What is gradient descent? Descent is something that is reducing. So gradient descent is an iterative first order optimization algorithm. Iterative means repeating again and again first order optimization algorithm. which is used to find local minimum and maximum of a given function. So this method is commonly used in machine learning and deep learning to minimize cost and loss function. Example, in a linear regression. Okay, as you can see here for the graph, we are taking the initial weights and then we have a gradient. And then we also have global cost minimum. So this is about the gradient descent algorithm and how it works. So here are some points to record or remember. Neural networks are a part of deep learning, which comes under the comprehensive term that is artificial intelligence. So ANN is a computational model that mainly consists of several processing elements that receive inputs and deliver outputs based on their predefined activation functions. So a convolution neural network is a type of artificial neural network used in image recognition and processing that is specifically designed to process pixel data. So if you give an image, this image is again further divided into pixels. Each of these pixels again is divided into arrays and taken into processing. After the processing of each and every pixel is done, it will give you an output. If you have inputted a bird, it will give you an output as bird. So this is why we say a convolution neural network is a type of artificial neural network used in image recognition and processing that is specifically designed to process pixel data. We have seen ANN, CNN, and RNN. RNN is recurrent neural networks. So these are a type of neural networks where the output from the previous step is fed as input to the current step. Output of the previous one is taken as an input to the new network. So RNNs are mainly used for sequence classification, sentiment classification, and video classification. So sequence labeling, part of speech tagging, named entity recognition. So these are the kinds of things RNN is used for. And artificial neural networks have three types of layers. That is input layer, hidden layer, and an output layer. And in the input layer, it accepts inputs in several different formats. In the hidden layer, it performs all calculations to find hidden features and patterns in our data. An output layer, the input goes through a series of transformations using the hidden layer, which finally results in output that is conveyed using this layer. So the association between the neurons, outputs, and inputs can be viewed as a directed edges and weights. So here, each of the input is multiplied by its corresponding weights. So weighted sum of inputs, and it includes bias. Weights normally represent the strength of the interconnection between neurons inside the artificial neural network. So if the weighted sum is equal to 0, then bias is added to make the output non-zero. If something else to scale up to the system response, bias has the same input and weight equals to 1. Here, the total of weighted input can be the range of 0 to positive infinity. So, this is one of a simple example. We are inputting a pixel data of buffalo, and we first are inserting into the layers, hidden layers. That is first hidden layer, second hidden layer, and third hidden layer. So here we can see the first hidden layer is the edges, and the second hidden layer is the corners and morphids. Third hidden layer is the parts of objects, and fourth output layer is the object that it has identified. So that would be buffalo, zebra, and cheetah. So what's the probability that it has identified? The one that has the highest probability will be the final answer. So it will be 0.96, 0.02, and 0.01. So it has identified that this pixel image is nothing but a buffalo because it has 0.96 probability. So exactly how a neural network recognizes a dog in a photo. So during the training phase, a neural network is fed thousands of labeled images of various animals, learning to classify them. So when a neural network has to learn the difference between similar, as you observed, dog has 4 legs, a tail, so as many other animals. So what's the difference between that animal and this animal? So to learn that, the training phase is very important, and a neural network is fed with thousands of images, pixel images of various animals to learn and classify them. So input an unlabeled image is shown to the pre-trained network, and then this is how the first layer, higher layer, and top layer are distinguished. And then finally, you get your output that 10% is wolf and 90% is dog. So this is just a basic, simple example. We have two inputs, that is dog and a cat. So it goes into the input layers, then it goes into the hidden layers, and then the output layers, and it gives out this output as dog. So now let's quickly look into the code. So to work on neural networks, we have a library that is Keras. We have to import sequential and dense, and then utils. And then we take a random dot seed up to 10. We load through two training data sets, that is train and test. So here they have separated the data into two parts, all the input labels and all the input label columns, converting the integer type into float format. And then we divide it X-train and Y-train, normalizing the inputs to fall under 0 to 1 by dividing the entire data with 225. So that is the max pixel value. And we do the one-hot encoding outputs for both training and test data. And we after doing that, we store the number of classes, the variables, number of classes. So now we create the actual model, creating a user-defined function to return the model for which we are giving the inputs in it and train the ANN mode. So first we initialize the model. We use model sequential and then activation as ReLU. And we build a CNN model using train data set and validation on tested data set. So we design model is equal to design MLP, that is multi-layer perceptron. And then we fit model on train data. So model.fit, train, X-train, Y-train, batch size is 1000. And to learn, we are allowing it to learn. So we run the epochs. With the help of epochs, it learns the data. It remembers the data. It identifies the data. So, and then after the epochs is run and training and fitting the model, we evaluate the model on test data. So model.evaluate, X test, Y test, and we set the verbose to 1. And then we get the accuracy score on train data. So model.evaluate, X-train, Y-train, and then we print the accuracies of both the models. So this is how the ANN works. Now we'll look into some of the text mining concepts. So text mining is one of the pre-processing steps in data cleaning. When we use text mining is when we have text data or Microsoft Word data or PDF data. Yes. So here we have NLP data pre-processing on PDF data. First, for it to start, we have to install pypdf2 library. After installing, from pypdf2, we import PDF file reader. So extracting contents of a PDF, how do you extract? Data is equal to, we open the folder with its path, and then the help of PDF file reader, data comma strict is equal to false, we read it. We read it with number of pages. So here the pages is reader.getPage 0. I've asked from all of my pages to get only the 0th page. Or if I want the first page, I get the get page of 1. So text is equal to page.extract text. Here you are extracting the page that is 0. And then you get the text here. So this is the text. This is one of the paper that or one of the information I've put it into a PDF and I'm reading it. So here the regular expression based splitting of strings, we have token. So this is a basic tokenization code. Tokenization for tokenization in text dot split. I'm splitting it. So we print total number of tokens. So the tokens are these ones. So the total number of tokens here are 594. String length of tokens. So and then you import regular expression. So token is equal to re.split of text. So I'm splitting the text. This text is converted to this format. And then tokenization using this was tokenization using regular expression. But here the tokenization using NLTK, we use a library called as Punkit. So first we have to import NLTK and then download this particular library. From NLTK dot tokenize, we have sentence tokenize, and word tokenize. So first we are looking into the sentence tokenize. So sentence is equal to send tokenize of the text. It's taking time to load. Let me restart the kernel. Okay. I'll not install the library again since I already have it. I'll just extract the page and then I'll get the number of tokens. I will also not install Punkit again because I already did it. Yes. So this is a sentence tokenize. As you can see, after each sentence, we have a \n to it. So that is how sentence tokenize works. And we have from NLTK.tokenize import regular expression tokenize, word punk tokenize, and blackline tokenize. So first is the regular expression tokenize. As you can see, this is how it works. And we have pattern D. D means digit, whatever digits are there in the data in our extracted file, those are displayed here. And they have eliminated the words. So word punctuation tokenizes. After each and every word, there's a punctuation. And then backline tokenize is given the backline. We have stemming, refers to the process of reducing a word to its stem form. So from stem, import Foster stemmer and Lancaster stemmer. We have two of them where Foster stemmer creates object of the Foster stemmer is this one, wildlife, wildlife, society, society, bulletin, bulletin. It cuts off the IES, Y, etc., etc. from the main word. And then we have Lancaster stemmer. If you observe here, DOI, it has converted it into a lowercase DOI. And then tool, it's converted into a lowercase tool. Technology, evaluation. Yes, so these are the differences. Lemmatization. Lemmatization also reduces a word, but instead of reducing the word to its stem, lemmatization reduces a word to its dictionary root form or the actual word form. And to work with lemmatization, we want something called as WordNet. So we have already imported that. So from NLTK stem, import WordNet lemmatizer. Yes, as you can see, DOI is same as DOI, but lemmatization reduces words to its dictionary root form. So stop word removal, also you want a library that is stop words. And from corpus, we import stop words. So this is a text that I gave. This is just its test. Stop word is and a, etc., which are being removed. Only this and test is given as outputs. So we can give this in our data too. So Wildlife Society Bulletin 11020 DOI. It doesn't make sense, but this is a stop word removal, which is useful to get the keywords from the data we have. And tagging. We have average perceptron tagger, ENIA tagger, etc., etc. So text is nltk.word tokenize. This is the word text. And then we tag it using the post tagger. So this is how we get the output. Python is NNP, is VBZ, A is DT, Serpent is NN, etc., etc. So for the data set that we took PDF, wildlife is NN, society is NN. Yes, this is the output. So then we have something called as removing tags. Use beautiful soup to remove tags. So clean is equal to beautiful soup of text, get text. Print clean. And then identify whether the review is positive or negative by finding the frequency of words. Suppose if you want to find a frequency of any word, suppose when we did a Twitter data, they took the data set and they identified the tweets based on the frequency of words that have been repeated. Yes. So this is how you do it with freak disk to identify the frequency of words. With the help of these, you can identify the number of times or the frequent number of times the word is repeated to make it important. Here we can see wildlife is repeated 6 times, society 2 times, yes, 5, 10 times. So this is how it gives. And then we have import operator. Sort. We are sorting the frequency list items with higher to lower and repeated 22, 25 times, of 22 times, deer 11 times, population 10 times, etc. etc. So here ensure words are in the same case, upper or lower. So here we choose with lower. So you will find all the words that we have in our data to be in a lower case. And then you have the dist value. And then plotting frequency distributions. This is the count of the most repeated values. And this is a cumulative count. Cumulative count is nothing but here you are counting how many times a deer is repeated, but here you're counting 10. Okay, the deer is repeated how many times with the help of samples. So frequency dist token most common is these: deer, termite, population, wildlife, etc. etc. So this is how NLP or text mining is used in words filtration, recognition, etc. etc. If you want to modify your document or a PDF into useful information, these are the important regular expression or NLP tokenization, stemming, lemmatization you can use, which will give you results that you want. So this ends our wildlife analytics sessions. So thank you very much for your time.